Well, thanks for joining us this week, and the topic is yours. Got a very special guest. His name is Gregg Diacogiannis. He's an Army sniper. He's done 2 tours of duty in Iraq. He tells us a little bit about sniper training, about himself. It's very interesting. And he also, in the second segment, shares a war story with us. So I think you're really going to enjoy that. I know that I did. Fair warning, it does get a little bit real, to be totally fair. So if you have small kids, maybe think about putting them outside of the room or outside of the car while you're listening to that. So, Clint, let's go ahead and roll it. What's up, everybody? Welcome to The Topic Is Yours. Thank you very much for being here. We appreciate it. We appreciate it very much. Don't we, Clint?
Yes. Thanks immediately, Dave. Yes, we sure do.
I'm just making sure you appreciate it.
I'm awake over here.
I know that I appreciate it. Thank you guys for listening, and thanks for telling your friend. All right, guys, another week, another excellent guest, and I know I say it every week. I always mean it every week, but especially this week. We've got specialist Gregg Diacogiannis of the 269 Armored Regiment.
It's close, Dave. It's 269.
269.
Yeah.
Okay. Gregg's a sniper. Gregg did 2 tours of duty in Iraq. Gregg, thank you very much for your service. We really appreciate it. And thank you for being here with us tonight.
Thanks for having me, Dave.
All right, so we're going to get to your resume a little bit more. We're going to learn a little bit more about the training that you undertook to become a sniper, because nobody's born a sniper unless you're a very special child, which I have a feeling you were not.
Obviously.
So we're going to learn about that. Learn a little bit more about, just a lot of things. It's our custom here to have Clint shoot you some random questions, no pun intended, and then you respond to them. So, Clint, go ahead, buddy.
The pun was definitely intended.
It was not intended, but man, it was smooth.
There was a finger gun with that, Dave. I think it was.
My work's done here, boys. See you tomorrow.
Okay, you're on the hot seat now. Gregg, in whose episode was that? Oh, Jason at the Movies. He was. He sort of confessed to us that he sometimes faked movie reviews for his boss.
Fox News boss.
That's amazing.
National radio. Isn't that incredible?
I mean, that doesn't surprise me.
So is there anything that you've ever faked for a boss?
Faked for a boss. So thanks for the clarification there. Faked for a boss. Probably sales, I'm sure, at some point. I was in retail for 4 or 5 years, so it was easy to fudge the numbers by maybe not buying 100 incense in the morning so that my units per transaction was always high. That might have happened.
Thanks for the example.
Yeah, I'm just saying that's something that could happen in retail.
Hypothetically, it could have happened, and you may or may not have actually done that.
Correct.
Got it. Good one.
Okay, let's see. You've been. I think we're about to hear your story, but I think you've traveled a lot of places with the military. What's your favorite place you've ever seen?
A favorite place I've ever seen? Gosh, all the places I went were terrible. Georgia, awful. Louisiana, even worse. I went to the desert of California and the desert of Iraq. Although I guess was in Bahrain, which is a small island country in the Middle East. Crazy. It was actually really nice there.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. It was really clean, I should say.
Oh, that's good.
Like, remarkably clean for the Middle East.
Huh.
Even for, like, a Western country, it was, like, surprisingly clean.
Nice. Well, that sounds good.
It's weird.
Is it like a war zone?
No, it's just a small island country. I think Tiger Woods has, like, a closed golf course there.
Oh, okay, yeah. This sounds posh, man.
Yeah. I mean, they're a complete oil country, so their dollar is way more than ours. I think an iPod cost $200 more USD than a normal iPod if I would have bought it in the United States back in 2006.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Very interesting.
And then lastly, we had Eric, the jingle guy, on. Do you have a favorite jingle?
A favorite jingle? I don't know. Marshawn Lynch did a jingle for a plumbing company when he was in Seattle, and it was hilarious just because it's Marshawn. He just did it deadpanned.
Oh, yeah, because you're from Seattle.
That's right.
Okay.
So he did a deadpanned jingle for a plumbing company, and I don't remember it, but it was so fantastic. Just deadpan Marshawn.
Is there a way you can find that on YouTube and send it to us so we can put it on the website?
I could definitely do that.
Do that.
Yeah.
We'll put it on there.
Okay.
Oh, very
Sure.
good. Go to thetopicisyours.com and see some Marshawn. Marshawn doing some plumbing. Very good. Hey, you may have heard that loud car. You may have heard some locusts. Well, that's because we've moved studios. We've gone uptown. So we got a lot of noise, but that's okay. It kind of adds to the fun. I'm having a fun time with it, aren't you guys?
Yeah, so far so good.
So far, I'm just going to keep throwing you guys on the bus. I'm just going to keep doing it. All right, Gregg. So, hey, thanks a lot for being here. So, talking about training. All right, so again, you're in the 269 Armored Regiment, right?
That's right.
Okay, so what does that mean?
So essentially, there are 3 armored regiments. So they're each individual one's an armored regiment or a battalion. And those are part of 3rd Infantry Brigade of the 3rd Infantry ID. And so what that kind of means, Audie Murphy was part of 3rd ID back in World War II, most awarded service member of all time.
Wow.
Medal of Honor, all that sort of stuff, Silver Star. Excuse me.
So is that a source of pride for
everybody? Yeah, if you were in 3rd Brigade, 3rd ID, then you're dog-faced soldier. Mm-hmm. There's a song, Sledgehammer, by Peter Gabriel, that we had to listen to every single morning after physical training.
Yeah?
I hate that song.
I would too. I already did.
Yeah, it's a terrible song.
Yeah. Why would they make you listen to that?
Because we're the Sledgehammer Brigade.
Okay. Okay. Got it. So when did you decide that you wanted to be a sniper?
When I got there, they had just formed our Battalion 269, and they were integrating all the combat MOSs, which is a job title. So infantry, tankers, artillery, they decided to put all these types of jobs into a single unit instead of having them divvied out into their own units or their own battalions. And so when they did that, they started up our company called Bayonet Company, which was the first infantry company ever for 269. And they had a selection for snipers. And so I had been in the Army for 6 months, maybe. Yeah, about 6 months or so. So August of 2004, I tried out for the first time. I didn't make it the first time there as guys that had combat experience and things like that. They'd got into the section before me. And so then I stayed with Bayonet Company, and we went to our first tour. After the first tour, we came back, and I tried again. And this time I made it. After every combat tour, they redo the entire sniper section, so whole new teams, whole new command, everything like that from the top down.
So you were part of a section of 8 to 10 other snipers, right?
Yep.
Okay, and so do you have spotters there too? Just explain to me, because I am completely foolish and just I don't understand this. It's just not my world. You know what I mean?
No, for sure. And so how a section is set out, you have a section leader. And usually they're an E6, which is a staff sergeant. Usually been in anywhere to 6 to 10 years in the Army, sometimes less. Especially during wartime, people get promoted a lot faster just because the needs of the Army, they're growing. Mm-hmm. So in our case, we had somebody that had been in the Army for about 6 years, was our section leader. And then we had 3 different teams. I was in Team 2, and so I was the shooter for Team 2. And I had a guy that had been to sniper school, the actual school, and been qualified for being a sniper. Myself, I didn't go to the sniper school. I didn't have a chance to. There's a certain number of slots, and every brigade is only allowed a certain number of people to send at a time. So I didn't get a chance before we were sent to Iraq for my second tour. So I did a lot of other training, designated marksmanship schools and things like that. The Army shooting team, the one that shoots in the Olympics and shoots in a bunch of different competitions across the world. They were actually there at Fort Benning. So we did a lot of training with them and things like that. And we had a couple of guys that were in prior sniper units that came and trained us and stuff like that. So
what separates that from sniper school?
Sniper school is an intensive 3-week course. And so there's certain levels you have to pass, and certain things like stalking is one thing you have to pass. They do unknown distant range. There is a lot of shooting, but a lot of people think, oh, that's all you do as a sniper is shoot. Well, in actuality, a lot of it is judging distance, judging winds, back in the day when I was in, we didn't really have too many like range finders and stuff like that. You might have one. A lot of time you had to do it with your eye and using a scope or a spotting scope or an actual scope on a rifle and using what are called mil dots. It's a type of reticle. So you've ever seen crosshairs with black balls on them? Usually 3 up and 3 down, 3 to the side, to left and right.
Okay, yeah, sure.
So you can
I've played Call of Duty. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, that
got it.
Something like that.
Okay, just checking.
Just like Call of Duty.
Perfect. I think I could be a sniper.
Oh, yep, right there.
Cool.
So, kind of what you do is you do a lot of training in sniper school, and then you have to qualify. At that point, you're considered what's called a Bravo 4. You have that initializer added to your job title. And that's just something I didn't get a chance to do, but I did a lot of other training that was, I wouldn't say just as good, because the stress of being in a school and having a pass-fail at the end is different than just going to a class where there's not like, oh, you can't pass this. No, you just learn skills. And
sure, but at the same time, you did go to war, so I think you have a lot of training.
Yeah,
you know?
War's pretty good training.
I was going to say, you on-the-job training there for sure. So speaking of war, that's a terrible segue. It's not a good thing to talk about. But what's a mission like? I mean, can you kind of walk me through it, if there is a typical mission for a sniper team, what that sort of looks like and what's involved, please?
Yeah, for sure. So what we would usually do in my second tour to Iraq was part of the surge. And so we infiltrated into southeast Baghdad, up in our area of operation, or an AO, was right up against Sadr City. If anybody's seen American Sniper, at the end of the movie, Chris Kyle is protecting people that were putting up barriers around Sadr City. Now, some of the people from my unit were actually people that were putting up those barriers around Sadr City. So our AO was right up against that. And so we had a lot of IEDs that we had to track. We searched for high-value targets. So depending on the mission, most of the time we would set up our own mission plans. Depending on the intel that we would gather, we had a really great relationship with our intel, or S2. And so what we did was we worked with them, find out where the hotspots were, and then we would go out in regular infantry units with regular uniforms, and we would infiltrate with them, and they did a lot of walkabouts and things like that in the city, and then we would find a hide or a place to an abandoned house or somewhere to sit where we could overwatch a particular location that we wanted to do. So we would do reconnaissance, then we would plan a mission. We had guys from the 82nd out of FOB Liberty. FOB is FOB, so Forward Operating Base. Mm-hmm. And so we would use them as our wheels. And so we would go to them, they would pick us up in trucks, and they would take us and drop us off. And we would be out there just maybe an overnight mission, or we could be out there for up to 3 days. If we found an abandoned house, we usually did that. And so we would take a couple of guys from the 82nd with us. Sometimes 2, up to 3, or maybe 4 if it was a big house that we needed lots of coverage for. And so usually it was me as the shooter and my spotter or team leader, Corey, and it was the two of us on glass. On glass just means you're looking through a scope, looking through binos, and watching a certain area. Wow. And then you would sit there for however long, and then you'd come back.
So the way you describe it, and the way I'm hearing it at least, is you have a lot of autonomy. And I may be misunderstanding you, so let me just say what I'm thinking, is that you would, again, go in with standard infantry men, okay, soldiers. You would find value targets, but would you determine those targets, or were those predetermined for you? And then would you then, I mean, it sounds like you find your own shelter, you essentially write your own mission as you go. Was that the case, or am I completely misinterpreting that?
No, you're absolutely interpreting it correctly. We only reported to the commander of our battalion, so the commander of 269, he was specifically in charge of us, and so we reported directly to him, even though we were part of like a headquarters unit, which is where everybody, like all the utility people are put into, and then the specialty people like mortars or snipers are also attached to them. So we reported directly to the commander of the battalion. So all we had to do was just submit missions and he would just sign off on them. Most of the time, I would say 99% of the time, our missions got approved. Sometimes, depending on mission dictates, we would have to adjust or things like that.
And you would just submit them from the field.
Right. So what we would do is we would work with our, like I said, with our S2, our intel guys, on where are people getting hit with IEDs. Are there specific locations? Is it a specific road? We had high-value targets that we were always looking for. At our time, there was a sniper working in the area. We didn't find him over the 15 months we were there, but he would move in and out of the area over the time that we were there. And then we did a lot of watching for Mukhtar Sadr. He's like a preacher or a militia leader that had ties directly back to Iran and the Al-Quds force. So we did a lot of stuff when integrating the forces there.
Wow.
Interdicting, I should say.
Wow. Well, this is just fascinating. Thanks for being here. We're going to take a quick break, so stick around. More Gregg Diacogiannis, Army Specialist, when we come back.
Thank you for listening to the Topic Is Yours podcast. If you've been enjoying the show, please take a moment to rate us and also subscribe so that you can stay up to date with the shows. And be sure to check out thetopicisyours.com for past episodes, additional content, sweet merch, and to suggest a guest to be interviewed. Enjoy the rest of the show.
Okay, I just did it. All right, here we go. Welcome back. Gregg, thanks for being around.
No problem.
All right, dude. So tell me, Gregg, we've talked a little about your training, typical mission. What's a memorable, and I can't imagine how many you've got, but is there a most memorable night or a most memorable story that you can share with us, if you don't mind?
Yeah. I think the most memorable or most impactful night was in June of 2005 when my platoon, which is about 30, 40 guys usually, they went out for a mission on a Friday night. During this time, we called it Friday night fights just because they would come out every single night on Fridays and we'd have a little bit of gun battle. It was a good time. In this particular night, my lieutenant went out with a separate section. Usually, the platoon was split into two sections. He usually went with my section, the A section. A platoon sergeant just was on leave, so he hopped on the mission and wanted to go out that night with B section. So they went out. And they got into the city and immediately came under fire. And they were in a firefight for off and on for about 2 hours or so.
Wow.
And about this time, they were like, either we need to get a bigger force in here or we should just go back to the base. And they decided that, instead of turning left and going back to the base, they would turn right and continue to take the fight to the enemy. Which for us as infantrymen, it's what we were born to do. It's what we love to do.
Cool.
And so they traveled about 150 meters down.
Let me stop you. So how many guys are pursuing the enemy? Give me that again, please.
Okay, so there's 4 Humvees, and there's 5 guys in a Humvee.
20 guys.
20 guys
pursuing.
At this time, they didn't know how many. It was a pretty substantial force.
Large force, though, obviously.
Yeah. And so, we had a couple of 240, which shoot 3.6 or 7.62 rounds. So
What's that
308.
mean? So big guns.
Yeah. So a couple of machine guns,
Okay.
and then guys in trucks with M4s and M16s. So not substantial firepower up against what they were up against. There was guys with RPGs and a bunch of machine guns, AK-47s, things like that.
Wow.
And so they take this right-hand turn to pursue the enemy to go down alongside of a canal to hit a bridge about 500 meters down and then swing and flank the enemy that was in part of this city. Unfortunately, when they turned down the road, they didn't know that the Iraqi police had what we suspect is made a deal with Iraq or Al-Qaeda in Iraq. That's who we were fighting against at this point, and they had made a deal with them to lead us down this road on purpose. And so they were leading the convoy with 2 trucks at the time, and they went over this spot in the road that we couldn't see. Obviously, in Iraq, the roads are pretty terrible, and so you wouldn't notice if they tore up the road or not. The first Humvee went over this spot in the road, Unfortunately, on this spot in the road, there was 4 155 millimeter artillery shells, and they were triggered at that point and blew the Humvee about 5 feet in the air.
Oh, man.
My lieutenant died instantly. I think the doors were blown open. I'm assuming he fell out on the right side of the truck and then died on the spot there. The driver of the truck, John Ski, as we called him, he jumped out of the truck, fell, stumbled. He's fully engulfed in flames, and he sees the canal, which is kind of a river and a creek, but also that's where all the runoff from all the toilets of the city went into. So it's kind of like this real gross, swampy sort of situation.
Oh, man.
He sees that, and instinctually it's water, so he has to put himself out. He's fully engulfed in flames.
Oh, yeah. Gosh.
So he dives into the water and puts himself out. At this same exact moment as the truck blows up and hits the ground, the gunner was my team leader, Corporal Long, and he somehow stumbled and climbed out of the top, again, fully engulfed in flames, but fell to the ground and died there in the middle of the street. Once the truck hit the ground, one of the most amazing things, and kind of one of the reasons I wanted to tell this story, is because Specialist Rosado jumped out of the second truck and sprinted down to Ski, and Ski was in the water maybe 75 meters or so in front of him. Now, the moment the IED went off and blew up the truck, a hail of gunfire from the northeast side of the canal started. They started shooting RPGs, and what we found out later, after capturing the lead guy that led this attack, was there were probably between 50 and 60 guys in this attack, up against 20 guys. And so Rosado sprinting down the street in a hail of gunfire with just an M4. There was 2 guys on a bridge. Like I said, we were trying to turn on that bridge a couple hundred meters down the road, and they were shooting at Ski in the water. Well, Rosado shot those 2 guys, jumped and sprint without stopping, and we're talking about a 10 to 12 foot drop into this canal. Without stopping, Rosado just jumped in, pulled Ski out of the water, and then laid on top of him for the next 45 minutes to an hour while they waited for reinforcements to show up. So at this point, I am sitting back on our forward operating base. I was actually on the phone with family, and I've heard the explosion and was like, oh, that's not good. We'd been hearing gunfire. We were maybe a mile or so as a crow flies from this event, so you could hear the gunfire and stuff throughout the night, but it wasn't anything unusual. But once we heard the explosion, we knew that it was probably pretty serious. And when that happens, if somebody becomes KIA, so killed in action or wounded in action, they automatically cut all the phones and internet off, so we can't report something back to the States and inform families before the proper protocol are taken.
Right, sure.
So I sprinted back to our barracks, and I get in the barracks, and everybody's just don't know what to do. It was probably the most terrified I've ever been. And so I'm trying to put my uniform back on, and I have one boot on, and I have a rifle in my hand, and I have my magazines and all those pouches and everything, and I don't even have body armor with me, and I'm like, what are we supposed to do? Where are the rest of the trucks? Where are the trucks that we're supposed to get on? And just freaking out, and because you can't do anything, you're so so it's this weird.
You felt trapped.
Yeah, this just terrifying moment that your buddies are out there fighting and dying, and you don't know what to do, and you can't help them. But to tell that story is just an amazing how people give up their lives or put themselves in harm for just somebody that's completely a stranger a year before. Rosado came to our unit after being on a National Guard unit in Puerto Rico. And so, he's an immigrant, essentially, just fighting a war, helping Ski, this random white kid from Detroit. It's just amazing how, in a year's time, we formed these bonds where it didn't matter what was happening in the moment. somebody knew that one of our brothers was in trouble and was going to try to do everything he can to save his life.
A little bit of a lesson there, I think.
A little bit. I think, especially in times like where we're so divided right now.
Yeah.
I always look back in those times and people will say like, oh, well, this person's black or white or Asian. And in the Army, everybody's green. It's just the color of the uniform.
Right.
And for me, back then, I didn't really see race and matter to me. It was just, my brothers in arms, and I do anything for them, and they do anything for me.
Wow.
And I think that still applies now. So it's kind of the best story. Well, the funny part of this story, if there is a funny part, is once Ski got pulled out of the water and the medical team was attending to him, he looked at Rosado dead in the eyes and asked Rosado, "Hey, Rosado, am I still intact?" And from Rosado's telling of the story, he looked at Ski, pretended like he looked down, and said, "Yeah, Ski, you're good to go, bro." It's just a funny moment, and how, even in the worst times, guys in the Army will find something to joke about.
Yeah. Talk to me a little bit about your buddies. Can you do that?
Yeah. I think it's funny. I didn't see Ski for more than 10 years. And I saw him last summer, and it was funny. It was like we were back in the barracks, 19 years old, 20 years old, just drinking and hooting and hollering. No time had passed at all. Actually, on my drive out here, I was deleting some text messages off my phone, and I texted a guy back in May. I don't even know him. I just know his name, Jesse. And I'd heard through a buddy that he was going through a hard time back in May and just wanted somebody to talk to. So a bunch of us reached out to him, and he's doing all right. And I just saw that text message, and I realized how even it doesn't really matter. The bond between veterans is so strong. And so I just texted him tonight. I was like, "Hey, man, how you doing? Just wanted to check in on you. It's been 4 months." And he's like, "Dude, thanks for checking in on me. I don't even remember who this is, but thanks for checking in on me. I'm really in a good place." So even, awesome. I just know a veteran, and just our bond and the way that we'll go out of our way to do whatever is possible. You think about, Houston's going through this huge hurricane right now. My Facebook feed and my Twitter account is just amazing how they're just doing anything possible to gather supplies and going down there and, dropping whatever they can.
Wow. That's awesome. Well, I was joking a little bit before. It almost seems like it's obligatory to say to a veteran, "Thank you for your service." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I've always meant it whenever I said it, or I know that people who say it mean it. But it's, man, I really respect. That's an incredible story. I've learned a lot just sitting here talking to you, because I've known you for a while. You're a friend of mine, but I've never had this conversation. You know what I mean? You've always just been a buddy of mine who I like, and is cooler than me. Which I know is pretty obvious, and most people are. So that's not a shock to anybody. But it's cool here. Thanks for sharing your stories. It's really cool to hear them. And I think that bond between veterans it's so cool that that's there. And the fact that you say you don't see race, you don't see color, you just see we're on the same side and we're fighting for the same thing. And like you said, that's a lesson for all of us. You know what I mean? So thanks a lot, Gregg, for being here, man. We really appreciate it. And thank you again for your service.
No problem, Dave. Everybody says thank you for your service, and it's great, but really I try to redirect that just to remind everybody that, there were guys, there are a lot of guys that lost their lives, and they gave up something greater than all of us. And so, thanks to me, but really the real thanks is to them.
Yeah, and those guys that have gone on ahead of you, we were talking before, you think of them. When things are tough for you, you remember the sacrifice that they made, right?
Yeah, every day I literally have their names tattooed on my arm, so I can't go a day without thinking about them. I named my oldest son after them. And so, every single day, they're the reason that I get up in the morning. They're the reason I go through the hard times, and they always remind me, no matter how bad it is in sales for us, Dave, you know what? I'm not getting shot at. Nobody's trying to kill me, and my buddies aren't dying at work. So
right. Awesome. Good perspective. Gregg, thanks a lot for being here. Clint, let's go to commercial. After that, we'll come back for the mailbag. Stick around.
You have chosen the Topic Is Yours podcast.
What's your favorite kind of melon?
Your source for sophisticated conversation.
The most rudimentary machine is probably going to be better than me, but...
For the discerning listener.
All right, anyway, this is awkward and weird.
And thought-provoking questions.
Kristen Chenoweth, hot or not?
That will enlighten the listener's perspective.
Is it kind of like the going back in time in a way? I mean...
Kind of, but it's like going into the future.
Good day.
We're gonna open the mailbag. We're gonna check some mail. Mail time.
Welcome back. Time for the mailbag. Thanks again, Greg. Great job. Really appreciate that story. It's such a good story. Kind of makes me not even really want to do the mailbag. You know what I mean, Clint?
I do know the question I have picked out for you doesn't follow that very well, but we're going to do it anyway because that's how we do it.
When could they ever follow that?
I know.
Normally, every single question is pretty much ridiculous.
Pretty much. Just wait this week. It's especially ridiculous. So
Great.
Okay, so we had a fan named Lauren write in and said, have you heard Taylor Swift's new song? What's it? What's the name of that thing? Look What I've Done.
Look what you made me do now.
All right.
I don't know.
So, have you heard it?
Yeah, I heard a little bit of it. Yeah, sure.
Okay, she's got a follow-up.
Okay.
Is it the worst song you've ever heard or just the second worst?
It's going to have to be second worst. The worst song I've probably heard is probably one of those that Clint recommended to me. I don't know, Dirty Parent or Nashville Parent. What was it called?
Oh, yeah, Nashville Parent.
Yeah, no, actually, that was cool. No, dude, you know what? I kind of like this song. Little Taylor, she nailed it. She did a good job there.
Really?
Yeah, I kind of like it.
Oh,
it's a toe tapper for sure.
I'm amazed.
Thank you.
What's the actual worst then? She says she's having a hard time imagining anything more awful. Enlighten us, Dave.
Gosh, man, there's so many choices. Well, now that you put me on now I can't think of a worse song. I was just trying to be nice to Taylor.
What about the video? Have you seen the video? It's receiving a lot of attention.
Yeah, no, I don't watch music videos.
You don't watch music videos intentionally, or you don't get around to it?
No, I've never liked music videos. I think that they detract from the song. I think they're silly, and they're just not my thing at all.
Dave from the MTV generation does not like music videos. This is what you're telling me here?
Yeah, no, it's absolutely true because, in my opinion, MTV detracted from music quality. Now, that's not to say that there weren't some great bands and songs that thrived on MTV, but I do think that once MTV took over, it became way more important how you looked, how you presented yourself, and far less important were the auditory qualities. Are these good songs? Are these creative songs? Are they trying something new? It became more formulaic in a way. Now, I know that's blasphemous because there was also a lot of very progressive and people who took risks on MTV, but it was all at the primary focus was how do we present ourselves? What kind of director? What are we going to do from a video perspective rather than from a song auditory perspective? I think that took a back seat in my opinion. So I'm not a music video fan. I've never been a music video fan. I think if you have a good song, you don't need a music video.
Dave, strong take, and I can respect that with that explanation, but have you just ever wanted to know like what they look like, their stage presence, sort of their take on their own songs? None of that interests you?
Actually, no, and that's a fair question. I get why you're asking that question, but no.
What about album art? Like, okay, back in the days, if we have kids listening, we have to explain. There used to be CDs, cassettes, records. Mm-hmm. There was album art. It, in my opinion, that really adds to it because I used to always go get the CD art, pull it open, sort of see what they put in there, especially if they did their own art.
Totally
see
with
the
you.
lyrics. All right,
totally. No, you nailed it.
So that flies, but a video doesn't.
It's weird, right? But it's just, for me, it's I love some good album art. Open that up, read the lyrics, read a little bit about the band. I just never really been like, even with the Beatles. I love the Beatles. I've never cared about watching any of their movies or anything like that. It's just not my thing. Just not my thing, Clint. Strong take. And I know people hate me now more than ever. I'm sure it's kind of like you and Nirvana. I've just lost a ton of fans, if I had any. But I'm just not my thing.
You learn to live with it, so don't apologize.
All right, cool. Any that's it, right?
That's it.
That's it.
No trolls this week. Sorry.
Fantastic.
Hey, Disney. We can invite him back out if you want.
Get lost, Disney lover. Stay lost. We never wanted you around here anyway. But keep listening, please. We appreciate it. And tell all your friends, Disney lover. Well, this has been another good show, Clint. Thank you. Excellent job as always. Thanks again to Greg. Thank you guys for listening and sharing with your friends. Until next time, this is Dave and Clint signing out. We'll see you then.